Good afternoon. Welcome to Moore County Board of Education work session for today, Monday, October 14th. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We have a lot to discuss today. Dr. Grimacy?
Madam Chairman, I'll invite our panelists to gather here at the front table, and as they do, I'd like to note that having devoted over a month to your final consideration of the proposed multi-year student assignment plan and the related public comment, you discussed and took action on a series of amendments to the plan during your work session on October 7th, 2019, last Monday. Staff members and consultants will now present your amended plan to you with revised data tables, transfer policy language, and revised maps that are intended to reflect your approved amendments. Staff requests that you evaluate the revisions and determine A, if the staff has captured your intentions accurately, and B, if you wish to consider any additional amendments in advance of your action on the final amended plan during this evening's regular business meeting. I now yield to our panel for presentation of the amended plan. As has been the case on numerous occasions over the past year, the panel includes Mr. John Barath, Executive Officer for Operations, Dr. Tim Locklear, Chief Officer for Academics and Student Support Services, and our numerics consultants, Mr. Mike Miller and Ms. Laura Evans. Panelists, take it away.
Chairperson and Vice Chair, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Grimacy, it's good to be here today. This is the culmination of 2 years' worth of hard work. So Mike and I are very excited to be here today. The word culmination is important to us. But I want to say that the hard work involved community members, school-based staff members, school-based administrators, central office staff members, the superintendent, the consultants, and you guys. 2 years of very hard work to come today with the superintendent's recommendation and the amendments that we hope you'll approve today. We started the process with guiding principles that you developed 2 years ago that saw us through both years. We looked at balance, efficiency, planning, and community. Every bit of feedback that came in from the community, every decision that we made throughout the process was bounced off of these 4 principles to see, were we following the guiding principles that you set forth? The guiding principles were our playbook for the 2 years. We followed a set of desired outcomes. You know, it all began because your community approved a bond, and you opened 1 brand new school and built 3 other new schools to replace existing schools. So the community began this process when they approved that bond. So the goal of the second year of the assignment plan was to develop the assignment areas for the 3 replacement schools, to resolve some unfinished business from the first year. And then the advisory committee came up with these other 2 goals that, to the extent possible, we were to balance utilization across the schools as well as attempt, to the extent possible, balance demographics across the elementary and middle schools. Our original goal did not include any high school changes, but through the process, we made some changes to high school lines that you'll see with the data that Mike's going to present actually helped across the district. We had a well-followed timeline that brings us all the way to today, October the 14th, where I believe you're going to vote, I hope to vote to approve the assignment plan this evening. We were just talking about whether Mike and I were going to be here for that. Mike doesn't want to be here, but I wouldn't mind being here. Because I think the process has been good, and I think the assignment plan is good for Moore County schools. I'll let Mike talk about the process.
As you know, we have adhered to a fairly strict process throughout this assignment plan, a process of iterative scenarios, feedback, community involvement, discussion among staff and board members, and using this process, working through 3 successive drafts, draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, each of those followed by extensive community involvement, involvement with the advisory committee, giving us feedback, very specific feedback, and finally with board members to arrive at our final proposed assignment plan that you'll see today. This final plan includes some amendments that were approved by the board 1 week ago at the October 7 work session. We will go over each one of these. They're classified into 2 categories. We call them technical corrections, which are largely changes that came about when your transportation department looked at the busing routing solutions for the new plan, the superintendent's recommendation, and uncovered some discrepancies, continuity, accessibility issues involved with busing. And so the technical corrections were arrived at trying to eliminate those transportation problems. And I think John probably can discuss them if we need to go into any depth. The second category are amendments that were proposed by the board 1 week ago, and we'll go over each one of those as well. The map on slide 7, if you zoom in, you will see 8 white circles or ovals there. The white color corresponds to a technical correction. I'll just list them off one by one. We looked at technical corrections at Williams Road. That's a middle school change. Cox Road, that was a middle school assignment change. Holly Grove Church Road, that was affecting all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high. NC 2427, that was a K-8 change. The Northmore line, which is just a correction near Northmore High School, it involved no students. It was a K-8 change as well. Coles Mill Road and Old River Road were technical corrections that involved all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high. And finally, Connecticut Avenue was a technical correction involving elementary children only. The 3.
Oh, I don't know if this is the right time, but I wanted to say that Mike and I, we talked about this several times to be sure what I'm about to say is correct. But for each of these technical corrections, any students impacted actually are going to be remained assigned at the school they're currently attending. Does that make sense? No change, and it's just under 200 students that are no longer impacted by the assignment proposal.
Thank you. That takes us through the 8 white circles on the map. The 3 red circles were amendments discussed and approved by the board 1 week ago. Those are the neighborhoods of Pinehurst number 6. The amendment that was approved moved Pinehurst number 6 from West Pine Elementary in the superintendent's recommendation to Pinehurst Elementary. Longleaf Drive, that area there was returned back to Pinehurst from West Pine Elementary in the superintendent's recommendation. And finally, Blake Village, which is an anticipated development. There's no students in there currently, but we're anticipating as many as 40 to 50 elementary kids. That was moved to counter these other 2 amendments. That was moved to Aberdeen Elementary from Pinehurst in the superintendent's recommendation. Any questions on those? And finally, into the plan itself. You've seen this format for the data tables many times now. A lot of data here, but let me just outline a couple key points, what I feel are key points here. One of the desired outcomes that the planning committee and board members and the advisory committee were focused on was to balance utilization. We feel that the elementary school plan presented today does a pretty good job of that. If you look on the right-hand side, those summary statistics, if lines did not change from where they exist today, we would have a range between 117% and 61% utilization in K-5 schools. That's a range of 56 points. Under the current proposed plan, in 2022-23, that range has decreased to 32 points with a high of 101. That is at West End, and a low of 69, which is at Robbins. So significant change in overall balancing utilization at facilities throughout the county. Some noteworthy changes at individual schools. One of the desired outcomes, as you know, was to take care of unresolved business from the Area 1 plan involving McDeeds Creek. We feel like the proposed plan does just that. Coming from a utilization of 67%, if no changes occurred, to a utilization of 83% in 2022 under the current proposed plan. Also, Vass Lakeview went from a 100% utilization in 2022 to a 83% utilization in 2022 under the proposed plan. This is to provide room for the anticipated growth that we see continuing in Vass Lakeview. If you scroll to the right, you will notice that Vass Lakeview is expected to fill up, and we've just postponed that overutilization for a few years. West End, even though it is a 150% in the current plan, and it moved down to 101% under the proposed assignment plan, which is still over capacity. We understand that the West End district, or base attendance area in particular, is very challenging to be able to balance or move children out of that district in order to get it under 100% utilization. It's a very challenging geographic base to consider. And finally, West Pine Elementary School goes from a utilization of 117% down to 76% in the proposed plan before you today. Slide number 9 shows the current, meaning 2019, current school year assignment for elementary schools. And on the right is the proposed plan upon final implementation. As you know, this plan encompasses 2 years of implementation. We'll talk about how those phases are going to be implemented in just a moment. But the map on the right is upon full implementation in 2021-22. Yes, thanks, John. The red lines on map number, on the right-hand map, correspond to the 2019 elementary boundaries, just to give you a frame of reference on what has changed. Slide 10, data tables for the middle schools. Once again, we were looking at a challenge of trying to balance utilization for the middle schools across the whole district, and especially the 4 middle schools located more in the south of the county. We feel like the current proposed plan does about as good a job as you can do for that. Going from a range of 83 points under the current lines to a range of 22 points under the proposed plan. Maximum utilization under the current lines is 141% at West Pine Middle School. That moves down to 105% under the proposed plan for West Pine Middle. One other note here, and this is something that the planning committee has been challenged with throughout this entire process. We do feel like the utilization is more balanced under the proposed plan, but there will be a need for middle school seats in your future. If you look at the 2028-29 utilization problem, you'll see a district-wide utilization of 111%. So you're going to need some middle school seats. The same format for the middle school maps. On the left is the current boundaries. This time the current lines are in kind of gold, a little harder to see on this map. The map on the right represents the proposed plan in front of you upon full implementation. And finally, for the high school plan, as Laura mentioned, originally they were not targets for reassignment. At the beginning of this process, the advisory committee was very helpful in pointing out some solutions that we could look for in moving some of the high school lines to perhaps offer some of the Northmore communities more fully utilized schools. So the current plan involves movement of Northmore High School lines down to the south, and you will see that the utilization range is improved a little bit from a range of 61 points in 22 under the current lines to a range of 55 points under the proposed plan. And mirroring what we said about the middle schools, you're still looking at above 120% utilization over the next decade, at the end of the next decade. High school maps, the left is current lines, 2019-20. The outline of the current boundaries is in blue this time, and you can see some changes in the Carthage areas up to the north, moving down. Northmore is the bright green color. You can see it moving to the south.
When you talk about feeder patterns, Moore County has been in the very nice position of having very few split feeder patterns from as long back as people can remember. But with the opening of a new school, a new elementary school, that actually caused some split feeder patterns to happen with this proposal. So currently Moore County has only 2 elementary schools that feed to 2 middle schools. That's the only splits you've had for years. But this proposal does cause 5 elementary schools to be split to 2 middle schools and 1 middle school to be split to 2 high schools. You all discussed that at length at your October 7th meeting and realized that it was just inevitable, okay? I mean, you hate that it happens, but it is inevitable, and it's good to know that the splits are large cohorts of children, so there's not any small groups separating out from their class going to a different school. Each split is a large cohort. There are some associated recommendations we want to talk about. We want to go over the implementation timeline. As Mike said already, it's a 2-year rollout. And then we wanted to talk about allowable transfers. And at your October 7th work session, you did make some amendments to the allowable transfer process. So starting with the implementation timeline, in the year 2021, we've set a chart here for those that like to look at a chart to see when they're going to move. So every school move is detailed here from Cameron to Carthage, from Sandhills Farm Life to McDeeds Creek on down the list. So these moves will occur in 2021. And then we have a map that actually shows these moves. On slide 17 is the current elementary attendance areas. Slide 18 is the proposed changes overlaid on the current. And all of the hashed areas are in that list of moving from and to during the 2021 school year. So you can just look at the map and say, oh, that's where I live. Yes, I am impacted during this school year, or no, I'm not impacted during this school year. So it's nice to have the map for visual folks. Then we move to the second year implementation. On slide 19, it's just the 2021 attendance areas. So they've been implemented. They are now in place because a year has gone by, okay? And then we get to the list of changes for the second year, 21-22. Why are we rolling this out in 2 years? Well, it has to do with your construction timeline. Pinehurst Elementary and Southern Pines Elementary, their construction won't be ready till that second year. And also some movement of mobile units that are needed at the middle school at Cranes Creek won't happen till that second year. So these moves in the second year have to do primarily with those two elementary schools and their ability to accept new students or send students, that kind of thing. So there's the list of the movements. On slide 21 is the 2021 attendance areas. On slide 22, we show the impacted areas by hash marks. So if you're a visual learner, you say, okay, yeah, that's where I live. I'm going to be affected, or no, I'm not going to be affected. Okay? We thought that was super helpful. Thanks, Mike, for making those. And then the map on page 23, or slide 23, is the final end result for the elementary schools, and it does show the middle schools. I think it shows the high schools too, doesn't it? It's all there. The end result of the 2-year assignment plan, and what your county attendance areas will look like. All right. The superintendent's plan did list some allowable transfers. We put them in 2 categories, proactive and rising grade. Proactive means you know that your student is going to be assigned to a school a year from now, so you want them to go ahead and start next year. That's a proactive transfer. And then the rising grade transfers, and this is where you made some amendments at your work session on the 7th. Originally, the rising grade transfers were for 5th, 8th, 11th, and 12th graders, but you all would like to add 5th, 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, which means that anybody who's attending a high school, and when that assignment changes for them, they can continue to attend that high school. High school kids really make strong connections to their school and their student body, so that was a very family-friendly move, or student-friendly move on your part. The second amendment you wanted to make, that we had in the plan, that siblings would go to the new school, but you preferred to say, no, we're going to be family-friendly, and siblings can remain at the school where their rising grade, terminating grade sibling is, so to keep that family together. So let me just read the language so you can hear it. Siblings, in parentheses, rising 1st through 4th graders, rising 7th graders of eligible students in this category who are already enrolled at the same school will be considered allowable transfers and may complete their culminating years at this school. Very family-friendly here amendment under the transfers. Both situations require parents to provide their own transportation and to follow discretionary transfer procedures outlined in school board policy. Okay? And then on slide 25, staff made this nice table to help you see who's a qualifying sibling with the rising grade. The first table at the top of the page is it details the 2021 changes, and as the kids move through the years at the elementary, middle, or high school level. So you see in 2021, rising first, second, third, and fourth grade siblings can remain there as transfer students. In middle school, the rising seventh grader can stay, the sibling, and high school's not impacted because you said rising 10th, 11th, and 12th graders can stay. And then each year shows who's eligible to stay as a transfer student. And then for the second year of the assignment plan, Table B, the changes go into effect for the 21-22 school year, and it shows the siblings that year, and as they move through the years they're eligible to remain at that school as a transfer student. So that's super helpful for folks, okay? And I think that leads us to the point of questions and discussions, and back to the superintendent at this point.
I'll defer to the
Oh.
chair, and then just
Okay.
remind the board that staff looks forward to feedback, the board's evaluation and feedback concerning, excuse me, the board's evaluation and feedback regarding the staff's efforts to accurately present the amendments that were approved last week, and also to assist the board with its consideration of any final amendments that it would like to propose.
I think to maybe organize our discussion, maybe we can talk first about the amendments that we put in place, and both the technical and our own amendments from last week. And are there any comments or feedback about those?
I have a question about the West Pines Middle School, where we're above capacity. Is it, I believe in the original proposal, we were taking the mobile units away. Are we gonna have to have mobile units stay at West Pines Middle?
Yes, there will be a need to keep some because we are going to be over capacity. It's the extent of the quantity that would be reduced.
Okay, were those mobiles targeted to go elsewhere?
On our master list of designated locations, those are going to possibly be shared at other schools, the middle schools, as their attendance goes above their capacity.
But you don't see an immediate problem with leaving some at West Pines Middle?
Not this time.
Okay.
Are the rest of the amendments as we discussed last week?
Fine to me.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the amendments or the technical corrections?
Well, I guess we can start with the technical corrections. All the technical corrections look good?
I would think so. They're very logical changes, especially with the transportation routes and the moves. One that we did not have in there, but I wanted to question, and I think maybe I alerted Mr. Barras so he could give me some transportation information, was the area that was not included to be brought into West End right on 211 at the corner of 705, which is it's Cedar Lane and, I'm sorry, I forgot the other road.
I think it's Falls Drive.
Falls Drive. And I wanted to just find out exactly how our transportation routes would work around there, because it is very, very close to the line as we have moved it, or as we were talking about moving it, to bring into the West End area. And obviously, folks there have questioned why the line would not have gone on over to include Falls Lane or Falls something. Falls Drive, yeah, okay, and Cedar Lane. So I wanted to get a little more information on that part of it.
Currently, Cedar Lane Drive and Falls Drive are both private roads that we do not go down. Therefore, our pickup opportunities are at those intersections on 705 and on 211. And with the routing of the buses that would be going to Robbins, A-Lease, and Northmore coming up 705, right there is Cedar,
Lane,
wrong.
Cedar Lane,
Sorry?
Cedar Lane.
Cedar Lane Drive, I think it was. That is an ideal location. There are 5 students in that community, K through 12.
So the bus pickup would be on 705, not on 211.
Correct, it was on 705, right there at Cedar, because that's also on the door side of the bus traveling north, went up to the school.
Yeah, so you would be on the right side. When you say the door side, you're on the right side of the road, so the children don't have to cross 705. If it were 211 going the other way, you'd be on the right side of the road, and they'd have to cross over 211.
No, because that intersection, Cedar comes in and then intersects with Falls there, that would be a pickup that we'd have to turn around to come back to go north. And to get them on that side, we do not want students crossing 211.
Okay, that's what I said, though. If you were going to West End, you'd be going east on 211. Therefore, you would be on the right side of the road, and the children would have to cross the road.
Potentially.
I think I'm saying the same thing you're saying.
You are.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Although
So-
we're
so
already
in-
running a bus out to 11, correct?
We're running bus
To-
out to 11 to a turnaround there and back.
Where is it turning around?
There's turning around at, on the left, there's either a church right there or the Eagle Springs Road right there, at one of those two locations.
So what you're suggesting is that then that bus coming back on 211 could pick up the children at Falls Road as easily as a bus could pick up children going north on 705.
Correct, because it would be going west on 211 and pick up at Falls on the right side.
So let me make sure I restate to Vice Chair Carter what I've heard you saying, is that your recommendation that the children the 5 children on Cedar Lane and Falls Road go to Robbins was based on the fact that for safety purposes, they could be picked up on the right side of the road and continue north on 705. But now, what we know, after that turnaround, the same bus could pick up those children coming back on 211 on the right side of the road on Falls Road. But either way, now it's pointed westward.
Correct.
So then it would have to turn around yet again and come back to West End.
Would
If
be
it was gonna
at
pick up
Falls.
children, if it was gonna pick up children on Falls Road, that means it would have to be headed west on the right side of the road. And once it picked those children up, it would yet again have to turn around and come back to West End, as opposed to turning right on 705 and going
Correct.
north. Okay. So either way, to get children on the right side of the road, you either have to be pointed north on 705 or pointed west on 211.
That's correct.
Any other plan either involves a turnaround of a bus headed west on 211 or children crossing the road on 211.
Correct.
Okay. I hope that helps, Mrs. Carter.
Well, yeah, and I understand that. I understand the pickup process. And definitely, we do not want a child walking across 211. That's disaster waiting to happen. And I think, though, that I do understand the parents who have questioned how we can come within a stone's throw, I guess, of that road, which is also on 211, and yet want them to go up 705 instead. So I just would like for the board to look at that location before we make our final decision.
And along those same lines, in talking, several parents have called me this weekend, and they indicated that they're not using our buses, that they are doing their own transportation, and both for drop-off and pickup. So currently, are a number of these children up there using, that I was not told about? I mean, not that you were supposed to tell me, but the parents were telling me.
In that entire area that the board has been discussing regarding Eagle Springs, as has been defined, the students that ride the bus and the students that are driven are split almost 50-50 out there. So we're seeing that about half the students are on our buses and half are being driven.
I guess the parents that were talking to me are the ones that are driving their children. Okay.
And that would vary from community to community, but district-wide, across the county, we have less than 50% of our children on our school buses. Is that?
Just about 50.
Very close.
Yeah, right at 50 or shortly south of that. So that's a pattern that's consistent across the district.
I think we have to be careful, though, that we don't make any decisions based on parents and children that exist today, because 10 years down the road, there might be other parents and children there that actually do use the school bus.
Yeah.
And you don't want to create an unsafe act.
Well, I think we have to base our routes on using the school bus. I mean, transportation is there for every child. We can't make changes for every individual parent that drives their kid to school. We have to do it with the bus routes.
Well, again, in going up into that Eagle Springs area, so many of the roads are dirt roads, so where are they being picked up?
Again, DOT maintains some dirt roads. Just because it's not paved doesn't mean it's not a DOT road. Those we do travel down if needed. There are some private roads back there, and the ones Ms. Carter brought up are private roads that we do not go down.
Okay.
So that's our restrictions on travel around the county. So we do have routes that go and pick up the students throughout the Eagle Springs area.
Okay, thank you.
I don't hear that any additional amendments. Are there any other discussions about that particular place?
I'm just concerned about the bus routes, because in looking at the roads, and again, not realizing which ones are maintained by state versus private roads, some of them seemed very hazardous to me. I was scared to drive on them, and I certainly wouldn't want a bus to drive on
And
them.
those are probably the ones the buses do not drive on, I will say, because there was a couple I had trouble with too, so. And I think that's part of the problem with living in a rural community, and we notice this every winter when there's when we have ice storms or snowstorms, that there are, a lot of times our decisions to close tend to be, because some of our roads in the northern part or in the rural parts of the county are not passable, so. I think that's just typical of the kind of county we live in.
Chair makes a good point, if I might ask Mr. Barath a question. Is it enough of a rule to say that we traverse on state-maintained roads? And for the most part, we're on state-maintained roads, and that our activities on roads that are not state-maintained is very limited?
That is true.
Okay. So where you see a road that's not state-maintained, you can make the assumption that parents are involved with bringing children to a certain point where they catch the bus. They have responsibility for that, and that's fair enough, in the rural areas, that's customary for a lot of our students.
So do we think that the staff have captured the intent from our amendments from last week well?
Or I guess the word we're looking for is accurately,
Accurately,
Madam
yes.
Chair.
Are there any other areas that we would wish to discuss? Or any other questions that you have about the presentation?
I'm still concerned about the distance for Eagle Springs students coming and going, and the fact that parents are going to have difficulty getting to and from to their children. So I'm, again, voicing my concern on this. I know that West End is going to be at capacity, if not more, but I'm still concerned that this area is being singled out, so to speak, and looking at the concerns for the rural area and their community. I'm reluctant to go along with this, but
Well, I'm not happy to have to do it, but, sometimes we have to make a decision with our head too instead of our heart. We're really locked in there. There's nothing else we can do at West End, so I have no idea. I think it'd be a disaster just to pour more students into that school than we can handle, since we can't do anything about it. So I think it's important that that school not be overcrowded, as it is for all of us.
and I agree with you on that, Mr. Dennison, but again, the long-term effects are outweighing the short-term effects, but
Well, I know we discussed a lot of this last week. When I think about some of those emails that we've gotten and where people are working versus where they're living, I also know that people live in very different locations than where they work. So we have a lot of folks that travel from Robbins all the way to Southern Pines for work. We have folks that go from Robbins to Ashboro.
we do.
We have folks that go up to Cary from work. So there are a lot of people
I
that
know.
I know that tend to travel in different directions than where they live.
And basically, whenever you look at the northern Moore area, unless you're a handful that works in the city limits, you have to get out and travel in one direction or the other. And the parents, I actually have spoken to several parents myself, and I heard their hardship concern. And the concern that they had, I asked them to look at our transfer policy and to look at the provisions that we had made within our assignment plan. Because I felt like the ones that had called me could easily qualify. And they were good with that. They said that they would go back and take a look at that. And specifically, I indicated that the provisions that we had built in was to assist, to the extent possible, to allow ones that needed that had hardship would be able to apply for that.
I think that's a good point.
But again, West End will be at capacity, so there will be limited transfers that will be available.
So either way you look at it,
I know.
it's going to be
I'm,
difficult.
I'm just,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you, Betty, too. You know, it's been a long, sleepless weekend about this, and I think also about, and we didn't even really think about it, but this is the only area really that I can think of that is going to a whole new area. So they're going to a new middle school, and they're going to a new
elementary.
elementary and high school. And the high school's really far from Eagle Springs to the high school.
It's actually the same distance to Pinecrest.
But it may be, but you were on a straight highway 211, 211, where here you're going up rural roads and all kinds of windy, turny roads to get there.
And two-lane
And
roads.
that's what concerns me.
Well, and I think we also have to look at what, we have a lot of changes within the plan where some people will be going have less of a distance, and other people will be having a longer drive. And I think that's just a part of this process. I imagine that when you all do other redistricting, you find that some are shorter, some families have longer drives. So I think that's just part of the process that we have. And I know we had a good discussion about this last week, and I know it was difficult.
We just got flooded with emails and calls.
We did, and there was a
We need to
lot.
address
We,
it.
we is
Yeah.
all of us.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
But again, I needed to bring that back up because I am still concerned and will continue to be concerned about this.
Okay. What other questions or comments did you want to look at?
I appreciate the presentation with being able to easily see the additional technical on the maps with the overlay. Appreciate you doing that, Mike. It's just easily that we can see and differentiate the before and after, so I appreciate that.
The charts as well, when to know who's going when throughout the year. So that was a great chart.
I think we've all gotten emails from another area that I'd like to at least bring up and discuss,
Sure.
and that is the Lake Pinehurst area, where we're splitting. So I'd like to open up discussion about that. But before I do that, I need a clarification. And I don't know if you can go back to the original presentation, but on the traffic study around the traffic circle, I want to be sure I understand the descriptions of the coming into the circle, which direction I'm actually traveling. So if you could just briefly go over that. I'm just concerned about the traffic circle itself.
I'm gonna have to try to do this from memory for a moment.
Well, maybe I can help you. The first approach was 15501 southbound approach. Is that coming from the north going south?
That would be like you're traveling from
Carthage?
exiting Pinehurst number 6, and you're heading south on 15501.
Okay. That's what I thought. That is the longest delay. And then Midland Road westbound approach. That would be coming from the east?
Westbound approach on Midland would be coming from where, like, Airport Road intersects Midland over
Okay.
there, heading towards
Coming from the
traffic
east
circle.
toward the traffic circle going west. Okay. All right, that helps clarify it for me. I just wanted to be sure I understood that.
Yes, sir.
Do we know how many students would be affected in the Lake Pinehurst area that are being moved to Southern Middle School?
I
We
recall it was a
have
very
covered
dense-
that in previous meetings, but we weren't prepared
I
to bring
know.
that information today. So,
Very dense area.
It's a dense area, so you're talking about probably a good number of students.
I think that's safe.
Okay. Some of the concerns that have been expressed to me that, it would be easier for the Pinehurst number 6 students to go to Southern Middle. But looking at the traffic circle and having them go through the traffic circle, whereas now they go and, you can go toward the traffic circle, but you can go through the single exit, which is basically no delay. And to have them go to Southern Middle would increase a lot of traffic in that traffic circle, whereas the Lake Pinehurst area doesn't have to go through the traffic circle.
No, and that's
to get to
actually
Southern
the
Middle.
area where I live, and there are 3 ways to get to Southern Middle from the Lake Pinehurst area. You could go Morganton, Monticello, or like you said, take the Midland Road and take that first single-lane exit. I know from, for instance, I've MapQuested it from my driveway, and it's a 3/4 of a mile difference between the two. So for me, the difference in between the two is not enough to be concerned about. Especially when you look at the elementary schools, actually. We have 3 elementary schools in close proximity to that area. Pinehurst Elementary School is 3 miles away, the new Aberdeen School will be 5 miles away, and then West Pine Elementary is currently 6 miles away. So that neighborhood is very convenient to those 3 elementary schools and, pretty much equidistant to either of the middle schools. Obviously, there's probably a little bit more traffic just because you have the lights, but you at least have 3 different ways of not being able to go through the circle, which I try to avoid the circle as much as I can.
Yeah, Mr. Weaver, a lot of thought was given to keeping those folks who are south of the traffic circle, which includes that Lake Pinehurst area, south of the traffic circle, so that they don't have, we're not adding more traffic, either parents driving their children or more buses having to go through there. And it made it a much more logical thing to pull that whole southern end on over to Southern Middle.
I understand that, and, my only reason for bringing this up is that I thought we at least should get it on the table and talk about it. And, basically, I don't see a way to offset the numbers in Lake Pinehurst that are going to Southern Middle with somewhere else. And I guess one of the areas mentioned in some of the letters I've received was the Pinehurst number 6. But again, you're sending them into the traffic circle, which is, an objective I think we want to avoid. Plus, you're going to, and if you don't move somebody else out, you're just going to further complicate the capacity issue at West Pines Middle. So I just wanted to bring it up because I'd received a lot of comment and a lot of concern about it. But I think what's been proposed is probably the most logical way to allocate across the middle schools. And I don't know if anybody else has a comment, but.
Well, I agree with you bringing number 6 up, John. We thought a lot about number 6, but, the Lake Pinehurst. But like number 6, the change we made is there's so few students, and we did keep that community together. Unfortunately, we can't keep all the communities together like we would like to, but I think we've done the best we can with what needs to happen.
Are there any comments about other areas?
Are we moving on to talk about transfers at this point or
That's a
not?
good transition, yes.
Okay, well, let's just transition into talking about the allowable transfers. And I like the change in the plan, but I am scared to death that we got to make it as clear as we possibly can. And I read this, and it all makes perfect sense to me, but I know that I've been working on it. So I just would really like for us to look at the wording on the rising grade transfers again.
What page is that,
Um,
Libby?
That is page
Oh, I have it.
24.
I
I
have it.
think the proactive transfers it's easy to follow. And I would hope that lots of folks will decide to go ahead and do that, especially folks with a kindergartner or first grader who might decide to go ahead and make that change, or someone entering ninth grade at the high school wants to go ahead and get the jump on sports teams and clubs and the opportunities that are available for them. So I think the proactive transfers is very clear, and when we should encourage people to make that choice. But I just want to know that everybody's read this rising grade transfer very carefully and understands that you must have a child who will be in 5th grade or 8th grade or 10th, 11th, or 12th grades during the transition year in order to have an additional child stay. So if you have a child in 1st grade and 3rd grade at Pinehurst Elementary, they are not included in these rising grade transfers.
Unless you have,
If you have a child in 3rd grade and 1st grade
Only.
only, that's all you've
oh, I
got.
see.
They are not included in the rising grade transfers.
Right.
Okay, so we need to make sure that we are really clear that you must have that child in the upper grade. Now, I have no idea how many children we're talking about that this might affect. And the only way to get that figure would be to lean on our principals to say, look at your current 4th grade class, or whatever the grade level would be, and tell us how many children you have there that have siblings already enrolled. The other thing that we need to make sure people understand is that this applies only to the siblings who are already enrolled in the school. So if you, in addition, have a 2-year-old that has not started anywhere, this does not put them into the old district. That 2-year-old, when they finally hit kindergarten age, has to go to the current newly assigned school. So folks need to understand that. Just because you've got a child who's still at, say, and I'm picking on Pinehurst Elementary just because I know that's an area that's really come up. You know, if you've got a child who's moved on up through the ranks, once they're out, they're out. Nobody new starts in. So, because we have to go ahead and make that cut. I've talked with a lot of folks in town who didn't have children in that situation, and they've said, you know, why are you letting anybody stay on? Once you set this policy, or once you do this, you could have trouble. When the new school opens, why don't you just tell everybody they got to go to the new school and make a clean cut? But I think that what we're trying to do is make this as child-friendly and as family-friendly as we possibly can. So I hope that if this is approved tonight, that folks will appreciate it, but they also will not try and bend the rules.
I think the clearest way to say that is there is no grandfathering, and we're sticking strictly with this.
And this is a policy that is only in effect as we make our school changes. This is not a change to county policy on transfers. This is a redistricting policy.
And it does not change, once you finish that school, you have to go to the next level school. So if this applied in elementary school, that when you go to, you have to go to your assigned middle school after that, even if you finished out your assigned, your elementary school with this policy.
Well, basically, I see this as addressing those transportation issues that some parents had, where they might have an eligible sibling, an eligible child, but then a sibling in a lower grade, and they'd have to be traveling to different schools. So that's the family-friendly part of this, is to try to alleviate that hardship. Really, that's really the whole crux of it, in my opinion.
Exactly.
But we will still face the fact that, let's just say you had that rising 5th and one in 3rd, and you have a child who is not in school yet but is shortly starting kindergarten. That new kindergartner will not start with his siblings. That new kindergartner must start at his newly assigned school.
That's
And
correct.
so there could be still transportation issues for a family, but that is the choice they will then be allowed to make. Am I wanting to drive to 2 schools, or shall I go ahead and let my 3rd grader move on over there with their newly kindergarten sister?
That's right.
You know, so that's a choice the family will have to make.
We had a similar situation when we closed Academy Heights with the year-round schools.
Libby, I have a question. And what if you had a rising 8th grader and he's going into 6th, so he's not in that school yet? Would they both be going to 2 different middle schools then?
Correct.
I would also recommend the board consider the chart. That type of question is the reason why we publish the chart on slide 12.
Well, I think it's also good just to verbalize that too, just so people can understand that, and that maybe that's where maybe a transfer policy would fall into play, yeah.
And depending on the family and the child, they might choose to move both the rising 6th grader
Right.
and the rising 8th grader to the new school, or to go to 2 middle schools. That'll be up to the parent to decide, and the children. I like the fact that this is a family-friendly and a child-friendly policy. I do think it means that we'll see the impact of the moves on some of our schools a little bit slower. So, for instance, some of our middle schools, we might not see the alleviation of overcrowding for a couple years down the line. But I think it's a fair trade-off to make in order to help those individual families.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, staff would just like the board's validation if the language in the allowable transfers slide that's underlined is acceptable to the board, or if there's any further work that needs to be done in the time that we have available and during the interim between the board's work session and the meeting tonight, is this language that the board is prepared to act on this evening.
I know, Libby, you had mentioned, you brought this up. Did you have parents that were confused by the language?
Just one who didn't realize her child would have been included in.
Okay.
Yeah. And I put it to both my own daughters and said, you know, look at your children, how would this work? One of them understood it completely, the other one didn't. So, she's blonde.
Hey,
Well, and I think the important thing is that there will be procedures around this
Yeah.
that we'll have to do, that will be a part of our transfer policy every spring. I know, I don't see Dr. Powers here, but I'm sure there will be some, real clear guidance in the paperwork that comes out when the paperwork comes through, because we will need to know to make these assignments. We'll need to know which ones will want this transfer policy and which ones will not.
Yeah, that's a good point. They have to submit for this. It's not an automatic.
No, they
Even
have to- they
the
have to
eligible
ask.
sibling
Exactly.
Right, we
is
need to
not
be
an
able to
automatic.
track it. We need to
Okay.
be able to track it and
Then we
have,
can help steer that then.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, the
Having that chart
principals, yeah, the principals will help be instrumental in getting the information out over the next couple of years, so that they know, don't lose sight of next school year of what you need to do. Yeah,
And John, just for clarification too, they still have to put in the application, but administration can make that decision, whereas other appeals we have to make through the appeals committee.
all right, anything else?
Madam Chairman, on behalf of the staff, I just want to say that it's our understanding going into this evening's meeting that the board believes that the staff's presentation is accurate.
Correct.
Just want to make sure we're clear on that. Accurate with respect to the data tables, the maps, and the language in the allowable transfers policy.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
And there are no additional amendments that are being proposed at this time. All right. Is there anything else to discuss?
No, ma'am. No.
If not, call a recess until our until we go into closed session at 5? I can't do that now, can I? No.
No, ma'am.
We'll
No,
call a
we'd have
recess
to-
now, and then we'll come back at 5 at Carthage Elementary. And then we'll reopen the session, go into closed session, then come back at 6:30. So the next public meeting will be at 6:30.
And I will note, we have a very full closed session agenda,
Yes.
so we'll want to get started promptly.
All right.
Thank you, one and all.
If Mike and Laura decide to stay, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you'll see.
I always say that.
I'd like to call back to order the Moore County Board of Education work session and regular business meeting. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Chair, I move the board enter closed session to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1, A5, and A6, and General Statute 115C-319, and to consult with the board attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3.
There's a motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Thompson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Is that correct? We'll be back at 6:30. Good evening. I'm going to call the board meeting back to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. I understand we have some students from Ely's here to give us a inspiration in the Pledge of Allegiance. Principal Wiley?
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Grimacy. This is very low, sorry. It is with great pleasure that I introduce two of our fantastic eighth graders from Ely's Middle School, Renee Lopez Garcia and Alondra Lopez Gonzalez, who will be presenting the Pledge of Allegiance and the inspiration.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. We may be seated.
Good evening. My name is Alondra Lopez Gonzalez. I am from Ely's Middle School in Robbins, North Carolina. I am here this evening to tell you about a quote that has inspired me and helped me in my life. Being of Hispanic heritage, I can relate to a quote by Selena Perez that not only inspires me, but has helped me along the way. With a positive attitude, you can be anything you want to be. Selena Perez. This inspires me because I see people who are negative or who don't try to do anything to reach their goals. But then I see others with positive attitudes who put effort in towards their goals. And those are the people who are successful, the people I want to be like. I want to be successful because it would be nice to be the one to change my family's past and future. In the past, my future has not had much of an opportunity to pursue higher education, and I want to change that. I want to be an inspiration to my present and future generations. I want to reach my goals to show them that with effort and dedication, you can do anything. You just have to try. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Could you please join me up front? We'd like to take a photo. Thank you. Thank you.
May we have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. Lori Paulus, please join Chair Wallen Miller and Vice Chair Carter in front, please. Lori Paulus from Cameron Elementary is this month's Engage, Inspire, Succeed certified staff employee. Ms. Paulus has served as the school librarian at Cameron Elementary for the past 17 years, and she has made some wonderful contributions to the school. She has worked to develop the Cameron Library strategic plan with Dr. Anthony Chow from UNCG, and recently raised enough money to purchase new furniture to make the library more inviting for the children. This past year, Ms. Paulus worked with the student council to raise money to buy 2 free little libraries at the school and at a local park. She has been dedicated to fostering love of reading for all students, which is evidenced by the fact that over the past 3 years, Cameron Elementary students went from reading around 10 million words a year to now reading close to 50 million words a year. Ms. Paulus has truly been a shining star at Cameron Elementary. Congratulations, Ms. Paulus. And would members of the Paulus family, Rob Byer, the principal, and others in support of Paul, please stand in support of Lori? Thank you. Barbara Bowers, please join Chair Wallen Miller and Vice Chair Carter in the front. Barbara Bowers from the Community Learning Center in Pinckney is this month's Engage, Inspire, Succeed Support Staff honoree. Ms. Bowers has been a staff member at the Community Learning Center in Pinckney for 20 years, and at that time she has truly done it all. With each school year, she takes the charges and challenges that are presented and makes sure that the school is able to function when the students enter the building. Ms. Bowers is not just the front desk lady, as she is affectionately known, but she is also a bookkeeper, data manager, and the heartbeat of the school. She always has a kind word and a smile for anyone who passes her desk, and of course her secret chocolate staff for staff. Now, the students probably aren't going to be happy about that now, Lori, but they know about it. She celebrates every win with the students and makes sure all their needs are met. From lunch to medical necessities, CLC could not do what they do every day without Mrs. Bowers. Congratulations, Mrs. Bowers, and with members of the Bowers family, Principal Keena Wilson, and others in support of Barbara, please stand and be recognized. Thank you, Barbara. Diane Watt from Elise Middle School is this month's Engage, Inspire, Succeed volunteer honoree, but she could not be here for tonight, so we will honor her at a future meeting. And Brandy Morales Avella, a senior at Northmore High School, is this month's Engage, Inspire, Succeed student honoree. She could not be here tonight, and we'll honor her at a future meeting. And that concludes our recognition for this evening. Thank you.
Northmore has their homecoming parade this evening, don't they? So
We will play second fiddle.
we will play second fiddle to that, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All
With your
right.
permission,
Yes,
Madam Chair?
please, Dr. Grimacy, the
I'll,
program highlight.
Turn it over to Amanda Dixon, who is our Director of Federal Program, CTE, and Grant Administration. Amanda?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Grimacy, and members of the board. It is my pleasure to introduce to you this evening Dr. Kamina Fitzgerald and Mrs. Laura Kinchin, who are going to share with you the spotlight this evening.
Good evening. My name is Kamina Fitzgerald, and this is Laura Kinchin, and we are both the middle school career development coordinators. And tonight we're going to talk about the middle school expansion grant and how it relates to career development. The middle school expansion grant has allowed us to expand our career development services for middle grades, and some of those activities include more field trips, a district career fair, and a Fun Fest competition in which we partner with Sand Hills Community College, guest speakers, and also more career-focused student organizations.
With the community partnership,
Last year, we had over 80 guest speakers. With our internal stakeholders, that includes the high school teachers, and we showcase the different program areas that each of the high schools have. We invite them over to the middle schools where they can speak to the 8th graders about the various courses that they offer. Our external stakeholders include community members and local businesses. This year so far, we already have 45-plus guest speakers that have been in and out of the middle schools. As you can see from some of these pictures, we have local businesses that we reach out to. That is Citus up in Robbins, the Chamber of Commerce. The two on the right are the different high school programs. Each month, we focus on a different program area. For September, it was business and marketing. October is our family and consumer science programs. And then November is our healthcare sciences.
Some of our career development field trips include but are not limited to Montgomery Community College, The Pilot, Sand Hills Community College, and Randolph Community College.
This year, we've expanded the college and career fair to the Fair Barn. Last year, we had it at Pinecrest High School. We had close to 90 different vendors, but unfortunately, we've outgrown that area. I guess you could look at that as a plus, actually. This year, we are hoping to have close to 120 different vendors, and that will take place in February this year. Last year, part of our initiative was to include the middle schools, and it was a select group of middle schools that were invited, 8th graders. This year, we are incorporating all 7 middle schools. The 8th grade CTE students will be involved this year. We encourage them to practice their soft skills, handshakes, eye contact. We have them bring in business cards to promote themselves to the different businesses, and we require them to go around to at least 5 different businesses, practice their handshakes, ask questions, and get them punched kind of like a bingo card to ensure that they're learning the different techniques that we expect them to learn. This year with FunFest, several of you were able to come last year. It was an amazing event. We had close to 650 students participate. Last year we had 12 different competitions for high school and middle school students. This year we're going to have over 16 different ones. We're including culinary, health sciences. We've now added automotive. We're expanding all our different program areas in IT and business. So now it'll encompass all the different programs that we offer at the high schools and middle schools. And this year we're anticipating over 800 students participating. And of course that is a collaboration with Sand Hills Community College for the students to see how what they take in high school crosses over into post-secondary. And then also they have what's called the Fun Fair in the gym during FunFest, where the students can meet with different industry professionals and take what they learn in high school to post-secondary into the career field as well. This year, our hopes is that with middle school participating even more, we can have that direct correlation from middle school, see how they expand into high school, then from high school to post-secondary. Last year, we had close to, I want to say, 16 maybe different volunteers from different businesses, and we had close to 21 different sponsors that gave to the funds for FunFest to help cover different supplies, help cover prize monies. The Rotary Club gave prize money for our idea challenge that was big for the students. This year our goal is to raise enough funds to cover the cost of food for students and provide a t-shirt for all participants. Our CDP Career Development Plan, this was started last year, and it's for all our 8th grade CTE students. The idea of the plan is to give them a 4-year roadmap. So we fill this out with every 8th grade CTE student prior to registration, and we discuss the different course options, not only CTE courses, but their core courses as well. That way it gives them an idea for projected classes, and it gives them the roadmap for their CTE courses as they progress throughout high school.
Now we will have a middle school career and technical, we're going to have a slideshow of our middle school career and technical education programs and partnerships for you to see. Next, I'm going to show you some of our Idea Challenge winners from 6th grade last year. They were the youngest there, and they actually went into that competition and won. So we had their teacher interview them. And their names are Reagan Dean, Megan Rowland, and Vincent Zhao. And the interviewer is Mrs. Rodriguez, and she's their teacher. Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome the winners of our Idea Challenge. It's Regan Deans, Megan Rowland, and Vincent Zhao. And the Idea Challenge is a competition where students were able to come up with small business ideas. And these were the youngest that were there and the winners. So we would like to take time to interview them so that you could hear a little bit about their experience.
Vincent, what are some of the different things you all needed to come up with for your business plan?
We needed to come up with the marketing and the selling price and the profit and the money we would get for it. Our roles were that Regan and Megan with the creativity were creative. We came up with the ideas, and
What was your role?
my role was like the person who was doing the profiting and marketing stuff, where I had to write it.
So writing the business plan.
Who was the manager?
All right. Regan, how did you feel being the youngest team at Idea Challenge, and what are some ideas that you might give advice to younger teens in the future?
So being the only 6th graders and the youngest out of 600 people, I did feel shy around older people that I didn't know. But I did feel excited and a little bit nervous. We were the youngest, but we decided to step up and say something. And some advice I give to 6th graders that might want to do this, if they're the youngest there, or maybe there's other people, just don't be nervous, stay focused, believe in yourself, because when people doubt themselves, I feel like they get nowhere. They're just stuck in one place. So believe in yourself and stay strong.
Okay, Megan, how did your CTE business class help you?
Well, like in middle school, we're looking for new things to do because we're trying to figure out where we stand in society and how we want to be in the future and what we want to do. And so if I had gotten the opportunity to do this in high school, I mean, like, I would have already had my friends picked out. I would have already had, like, my career choice picked out. My future would have already been, like, picked out and planned. But this helped me add another skill set to what I'm doing. So now I have other options, and it's not just, like, narrowed down to this many options because of what I used to know. Now, I also got new friends, but it's like I found out something else.
Another possibility for a career. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the why behind what we do is providing students with career opportunities now so that they can be career ready in the future. Thank you.
How about now? There we go. I met those students. I was there last year at the fair, and I talked to the three of them, and I was overwhelmed with their confidence, their energy, their enthusiasm, and just their creativity and how they presented all of that information. I could not believe they were 6th graders. So I'm glad to see that they won. It was nice to see that because I really, as I walked through and saw them all. So for those of you who were not able to go last year, and for those of you in the public, I highly recommend putting February 20th on your calendar and spending some time walking through. My other question for you is if people have something to donate or they want to volunteer, who do they contact to help with the Fun Fest?
They can reach out to us at the CTE office.
Okay.
We'll
And you
be-
would welcome any support?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
So you're looking for businesses,
Businesses, time,
money?
volunteers, judges, all of the above, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
But I believe Fun Fest is not until April.
Fun Fest is in April, April 17th, 2020, and then the career fair is February 20th, 2020.
Thank you for correcting me.
I just have a quick question. How many dozen eggs did you use in the egg drop last year? I was fascinated watching the children as they created their protective structures, and then as they dropped from a low height and then went up on the top of the fire truck to
Yes.
drop their eggs. It was absolutely amazing, but the majority of them did not survive.
They did not. Last year was the first year that we had the fire truck. Typically, they do it from a 10-foot ladder, so it was a big difference for them, and the winning egg could be dropped from 80 feet and did not break.
Wow. It was most impressive.
I wanted to say too that I love the idea of you having the students go to businesses with business cards and actually face-to-face shaking hands and talking with people, because we all know technology is what children are used to, so they're not used to that face-to-face a lot. I just think that is wonderful. I wish we all would do that, to be honest.
When we had our business advisory meetings, that was one of the main concepts that came up, that the students need to know how to interact and
Yeah.
communicate. And so our middle school teachers ran with that last year. We're revamping it for this year to include all the middle schools, like I said, but that's going to be one of their expectations. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I had a question about the fire truck. I understand the year before that, just used a ladder, and it wasn't high enough because, you know, too many were getting down without being broken. So the fire truck was there to make sure they kept it high enough.
Yes, yes.
I attended the bridge building. That was my favorite. And some of our students moved on to the state competition, if I remember correctly. But the best part was watching the students receive their awards for their technology and their advancement. And that was exciting to see that happen. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. A lot of these students don't have an opportunity to go to different events. So with Fun Fest, it gives them that opportunity to take what they have learned in the classroom and extend it beyond. The bridge building, like you mentioned, the state bridge building winners last year were from High Falls. So they won first place, and then I believe West Pine won second place. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have our consent agenda, board members. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, it's now time for public address. Ms. Carter?
Madam Chair, we have 6 speakers signed up to address the board this evening. A quick reminder that each speaker is allowed only 3 minutes, and we ask that you kind of keep an eye on the clock so that you might see when your 3 minutes has ended. There's no yielding of time to other speakers and no extra time for those speaking on behalf of groups. All comments must be respectful and civil per ordinary rules of order and decorum. Our first speaker tonight is Lydia Connard.
Good evening. My name is Lydia Connard. Thank you for allowing me to come before you tonight. I have emailed and spoken before concerning the redistricting of Eagle Springs community. We'd like to see it kept within the West End District. Tonight's topic, I have put before you copies of some school improvement plans and school reports that I'd like to have you look at with me if you don't mind. It has my name on it in the top left-hand corner. I did a comparison of the Robbins Elementary School and the West End Elementary School, and I'd like you to look at it with me. In the 17-18, which are the scores that are available online, and thanks to Moore County Schools, the overall performance of Robbins was a grade D. with a 42 performance grade score. West End Elementary School had a B with an 83% performance goal. Very large difference there. And at the bottom of that page, you will also see historical scores and achievement history and growth. And not to say that there hasn't been lots of growth in both schools. Turning to page 2, Robbins had a 41 D grade for reading. West End had a B, which is also a 82%. I'm sorry, that was math. Reading was a 44D, and West End was a B, a 79%. If we'll move on, please, to page, I'm scooting over because I had a whole lot here, but you have the performance skills on each page showing level 1, which is the gray at the bottom, 2, 3, 4, and 5 at the top, which is the red. Page 5, numbers of students in the school. Robbins has 414, Westing has 447, so they are comparably sized schools. According to the data given on page 6, the Robin class size is actually larger than the West End class size. Also, there are some resource differences there. If you will note, availability of computers and Chromebooks in Robbins Elementary is lacking opposed to West End. Moving on to page 17, Robbins, strategic planning, North Carolina designated low performing school, North Carolina designated recurring low performance school. If your child was at a high performing achievement school, would you want them to be moved to a low performing school?
Thank you, Ms. Connor. We appreciate the
Thank you.
handout. We'll be able to look through that.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Vincent Gordon.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Grimsley, and Board of Education. I am here tonight to just bring to you something from the Land and Housing Trust. I think I met with most of you about a year ago, and we discussed our concept of what we want to do with the Southern Pines Primary School. Well, that concept now has kind of matured to a plan and what we think we want to do at that school to help the West Southern Pines community and the greater part of Moore County. So what I'm asking tonight, and it's not made for a decision here, but for you to actually peruse and make a decision, is I have with me a plan to enter into a private negotiation, but it is an invitation for you all to meet with our land trust to go into that discussion. The invitation is included with the disc. We have other discs that if you need more, but the invitation explains exactly what we're looking for. We have the statutes and conditions of why we think we want to enter into a private negotiation. We have our plan in here as well, the concept plan that's been developed, our project management team, which includes myself, resumes, and Fenton Wilkins. And it's going to talk about our vast experience with real estate. And of course, our community support is in the back of the book that has petitions from the West Southern Pines community residents and a lot of the organizations right now who have given us letters of endorsement to actually move forward with this type of a project. So while we're coming to you, and I'm looking at my time, we really are at a kind of a crossroad at this point, and that's why we're asking for a private negotiation. We have made significant results of making an impact with significant tenants, and we have potential funding sources that we've located. And we are working with different development partners on the local level and in the state and regional levels as well. including the USDA. So we have some partners that we want to actually engage, but we can't engage any further at this point in time because we cannot go any further, not knowing where we stand with actually acquiring the school. So that's why we were trying to ask, based upon the statutes, the associated, and you'll see that in there, Section 160A, 266B, that gives you specific guidance in how you can actually negotiate in a private negotiation with the land trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vincent, I'll take, wait until Fenton's done. Is he talking on the same topic?
Yes.
Yeah, just hold on to it, and then I'll receive it from you as soon as he's finished, yeah.
So our next speaker is Fenton Wilkinson.
Thank you. My name is Fenton Wilkinson from Southern Pines. I'm to follow up with comments on the Southern Pines Land and Housing Trust invitation into private negotiations. Being a recovering attorney, it falls to me to speak to the statutory authority that the state legislature has given the school board. The section 168, 266B clearly and unambiguously gives the school board the authority to enter into direct and private negotiations for the sale of real estate on three conditions. The first is that the real estate must have either historical or cultural significance. The buyer must be a nonprofit whose mission involves handling significant real estate. And the third one is that there needs to be an easement placed on the property. Given the school's status starting as a Rosenwald school and then being the segregated high school, I hope there's no question that the school has vast historical and cultural significance. The land trust is a 501c3, and being a land trust, that's what we do. We manage and conserve properties. We are certainly more than willing and actually anxious to place a conservation easement on the property. One of our development partners is the Black Family Land Trust, which is a Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina land trust. They have agreed to help with the preparation of the easement, but more importantly, they've also agreed to hold and enforce the easement, and that's usually a difficult party to acquire. The other sort of legal thing that I want to throw out is the fact that in doing research, I discovered the 1924 deed for the 4 acres to the Moore County Board of Education establishing the Rosenwald School, and that deed contains language that the school is forever to be used for Negro education in recognition of the fact that the Negro community raised the money to acquire the school. Now, I'm not here to say anything about the legal enforceability of that. We haven't looked into that, because what we are offering is if you engage in and we can complete a transaction with the land trust, clearly the plan that we offer meets all the intents and purposes of the language, so there's no need to look at enforceability, which I think we all probably want to avoid. So, thank you very much, and I hope you all will give our invitation its due consideration. We recognize that even though we meet the preconditions, it doesn't mandate that you do it. It's your discretion to do it, and we will exercise that.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Camille Mullis.
Camille, before you get started, just 1 second, Madam Vice Chair, just for the public record to show that I've received the submission from the speakers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Camille Mullis, and I'm someone who is a fierce advocate for her children. A military spouse who's been faced with challenges of advocating for her kids in 5 different states in 11 years. The recent challenge of school district changes in Moore County that I'm facing with all Moore County families is unique enough of a challenge that I didn't really know where to start when faced with the news that my middle schooler would be required to change schools a 5th time in his life.
We bought our home on Oakmont Circle, specifically for West Pine Elementary and West Pine Middle Schools. I didn't have to search far to find other Oakmont families who share my concerns about sending their middle schooler to Southern Middle instead of West Pine Middle. I know you have heard from at least 6 of our neighbors. We are asking for you to make a small exception to the West Pine Middle boundary by including Oakmont Circle. The boundary on the draft plan runs along the outside of our circle, the dividing line between West Pine Middle and Southern Middle attendance. By keeping Oakmont in West Pine Middle School boundary, the overall impact to the redistricting plan would be small. The overall impact to Oakmont Circle kids being able to remain in the West Pine boundary would be tremendous. They would be allowed to continue their growth that started with West Pine Elementary and stay in West Pine's family going into middle school. Families who invested in a home on Oakmont specifically for West Pine Middle School can feel secure. In the day and age we live in, we are faced with many high-paced challenges as parents, community members, employees, friends, and active duty families. We have no doubt overcome many of those challenges. Please do not require the challenges of switching middle schools for Oakmont families in Pinehurst. We are stronger in numbers, and we want to remain that way with our West Pine family by keeping our kids at West Pine Middle School. Thank you for your time and advocacy and this opportunity to address the board.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tina Olson.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I don't have any notes. I thought I was coming to vote tonight on the redistricting. I am against the redistricting. One of my big concerns, and it was really hit me in the face today, is the transportation issue. My daughter usually gets home at 3:15. She didn't get home till 5:15 today. We live less than 2 miles from the school. I understand this doesn't happen all the time, but I really want to encourage you to look into the transportation issue if you do decide to redistrict. I hope you don't, but it's not working. I don't know why there's such a big problem with the transportation. There's a huge lack of communication. I was told at one point that my daughter was on one bus and she was actually put on a different bus. And then I was told she wasn't on the bus because I called transportation a number of times today to find out where she was. And then I called her school and they said, well, she was a car rider, which she wasn't. And I was panicked. And I just feel that they should fix the transportation issue before they decide to redistrict. I think there should be a plan in place. Maybe there is, I don't know. But it seems to me that it would be easy for the school to put in place some kind of a robocall to parents if their children are being sent from one bus to another due to breakdowns or lack of bus drivers, which I understand is a huge problem. I know last year my daughter had a lot of problems with transportation. So I just want to respectfully request that you look into that and maybe put out some kind of plan or I don't know, just to address that. But I just want to be on the record that I am against redistricting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Melody Connor.
As Ms. Connor's coming to the microphone, Madam Vice Chair, previous speaker was Mrs.
Olson.
Yeah, Ms. Olson, if we could, before you leave this evening, we can get you with Mr. Barath to address some of those specific concerns that you had. We appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ms. Connor.
Good evening. I'm Melody Connor, and I'm a lifelong resident of Eagle Springs, so I'm here in response to the Eagle Springs redistricting to Robbins. I taught 30-plus years in Moore County School. My husband taught 30 years in Moore County School. My children attended Moore County schools, so we have a lot invested in it. Many in the Eagle Springs area will begin their educational career in Moore County, graduate from our high schools, and hopefully be productive citizens for our county. If there is a move to Robbins, some of the hardships for our people in our area would include further distances to travel for the elementary, middle, and high schools, to attend after-school activities because of the proximity to work schedules and career position will be very difficult. Hardships for many families may actually have them pull their students completely out of Moore County schools because of the after-school and their work schedules. Eagle Springs community has been established for generations and generations. We have been either to the Eagle Springs schools or to West End schools and on to Pinecrest. My dad, who's 93 years old, went to Eagle Springs and to West End High School where he graduated. There are many young families who have built homes on family land, anticipating their children will be going to the West End, Pinecrest area. For them to sell and build in a different school area so their school could attend West End area schools would be a major hardship on them. The job for, I think, the Moore County Board is to ensure an educational experience, inspire students to reach their full potential, and lead productive lives. Moore County has a job to crunch numbers, I understand, and it's the county commissioners that have to work on the funding to help us with the physical needs that we may need. So we want you to help do what's educationally best for our children, and please keep them in the West End area school. Just because there are spaces in a building does not mean that you have to move students out of their present school to fill that space. I understand there's only 30 more students at West End Elementary than at the Robbins Elementary School. So please, please make it right and allow our Eagle Springs students to continue to go to the West End Elementary, West Pine, and Pinecrest High School. Thank you very much for your consideration to this very, very important matter. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes our public address.
Thank you. I'm going to thank all the speakers for attending this evening. Our last item on the agenda is our board action item for the redistricting plan. Mr. Barath. Dr. Locklear.
Madam Chair, Dr. Locklear and Mr. Barath, earlier today with our numerics consultants, reviewed the final amended multi-year student assignment plan with the board. At that time, you gave no further direction to staff regarding changes to the plan, and so at this time, the superintendent recommends that the school board consider a motion to approve the final amended multi-year student assignment plan for Moore County schools. Mr. Barath, Dr. Locklear, and I are available to assist in whatever way the board needs.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any conversation, discussion, questions?
Madam Chair, I have some comments.
Yes, please.
Many of the new student assignment decisions were very difficult. We did make some changes to keep communities together, but it was impossible to do this for all. We are doing our best by planning for 10 years out to reduce the number of attendance area changes that might be needed. We simply have to have our students in schools that are not overcrowded. I understand we will still have overcrowding in some of our schools, which will have to be addressed after we have completed our present construction projects. We made the decision to have McDeeks Creek Elementary as our top priority because of major overcrowding issues at Sandhills Farm Life and Bass Lakeview Elementary. We are addressing other overcrowding issues as new elementary schools are open. However, we will not be able to complete our plan until all new elementary schools are open. As a result, some students will be moved more than once. We would have loved to have had all schools open at the same time to eliminate having students to change schools more than once, but this is not practical for many reasons. Travel times were calculated for our bus routes. We could not address all the issues individuals had because they drove their children to schools. Bus transportation is available for all our students, and the more students riding our buses, the shorter the drive times will be. However, only about 50% of our students ride the bus. The rest of the students either drive or are driven to school. I want to thank all the parents in the community for supporting the building of our new schools, and I'm excited for our students attending new schools, and for those students who will no longer have classes in modular units that are losing 40 hours of instruction a year as a result of having to go to the school building for breakfast, lunch, and the bathroom, and they'll be able to have a lunch at a reasonable time instead of 10:30 in the morning or 1:30 in the afternoon. I am also excited for our entire school staff for being in buildings that are not 70-plus years old. And I'm looking forward to see the improvement in student achievement when this happens. Thank you.
Any other board members? Mr. Weaver?
I think we can all agree that the development of this redistricting plan has been a long and arduous task. I regret that the final plan will not address all the concerns and individual circumstances expressed in countless emails, letters, phone calls, and communicated in public forums by parents and others throughout the process. However, at the end of the day, we can't allow overcrowding and underutilization to go unaddressed in the face of continued growth in the county. Hopefully, some of the adjustments made to the transfer policy associated with the redistricting plan will help to mitigate some of those challenges parents might face that have not been addressed through the technical adjustments that have been made and the amendments that have been made to the board.
You want to go?
I'll go first. I wanted to thank everyone that emailed, called, and came out to speak today. I've been in Moore County since 2001, and we've never redistricted an entire county, of the entire county. I can see why previous boards didn't want to take on that issue. We all know with new schools there was going to be redistricting. This hasn't been an easy task, and it has weighed heavily on me and my family. There are a few things about the plan that I still don't agree with. As we know from last Monday, of one of them being Eagle Springs Community. I wish we would revisit that decision. In my opinion, it's not the best for those children and parents. We aren't talking about just going to the elementary school there. We aren't talking about just going to the elementary school there. The entire community is changing all 3 schools, with high school being farther. I know the vote was made clear of the change, but I felt the need to express my thoughts about it as well. I know change is hard, and we all are facing it, even my neighborhood. We wouldn't be in this situation if things were done a little bit differently years ago. Even though I will accept the plan, I want you all to know I don't agree with it. My hopes for this community is for us to leave the negativity and anger behind, move forward, and find the positive. Our children are watching, so remember, you set the tone for your family, so you can be the positive impact your child needs to succeed. Thanks.
Madam Chair, some of my comments are similar to what have already been expressed, but I would just like to say that following extensive 2-year student assignment plan, to look at school utilization, demographics, program opportunities for our children, operational efficiency, student proficiency, and other guiding principles that we built in as a school district. We have a student assignment plan that will be phased in over the next couple of years. This has been an arduous, challenging, staying up at nights, difficult process. However, to the extent possible, we have worked to be transparent, to be sensitive to the needs of our 12,800 students, their families, communities within our district. We need to strive. Once again, we've said this in the past, but we need to strive to revisit this plan every 5-6 years and not let it be 10 years down the road. I think that's been one of our challenges, is that we just have not revisited this process timely, and so this is where we are today. I too would like to thank so many people who have called me, emailed me, texted me. I would like to thank each and every one. I've tried to follow up and personally look at those and as I talk to different ones to see how we could incorporate their issues and concerns. So today, we're following up on our student assignment plan as presented. Thank you, ma'am.
May I want to thank all the families that reached out over the last couple of years that we've been working, well, actually, the last eight or 9 months that we've been working on this. I still have concerns about the Eagle Springs and the bus routes, and I've expressed that several times. I also have, one of our guiding principles is community, and again, to the extent possible, to promote assignment proposal process. And I think we've been transparent about it, but I'm still concerned about the splitting of the community. Thank you.
It'll sound like Ms. Caldwell and I planned our speeches together, especially when you hear the end of mine. I as well do not support moving Eagle Springs. However, I do support our overall plan because it is going to be what is best for Moore County. This has been a long and intense 9 months, now culminating in our final vote on redistricting tonight. We have heard from, met with, and spoken to parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, service clubs, PTAs, PTOs, and town councils, all because first and foremost, we want to bring the very best schools possible to the children throughout Moore County. We also did want to know how you felt about it, and though I know a few folks who may feel that we did not pay attention, we have listened, and we have lost sleep knowing that we will never satisfy everyone. We know that we are not presenting a perfect plan tonight. I'm not sure that a perfect plan could ever exist. However, we ask that you accept it as the one we feel will most benefit our children throughout the entire county. At this point, we must ask that we look at this as an opportunity to start fresh in many cases, an opportunity to most fully utilize our buildings to provide adequate core facilities, cafeterias, gymnasiums, and media centers, so that every child may be appropriately accommodated and to even gain in diversity and achievement in many cases. It is time to embrace this as an opportunity for our children. Many of them will gain new friends in this process, but it is also an opportunity to teach them it is possible to maintain old friendships as well. Our children will copy the attitudes that parents model for them, so we ask that adults think about this as they serve as role models for their children. Do you want your child to miss opportunities for success because they are not willing to step through new doorways? Now is the time for us to push ahead and to work together to open those new doors for all children.
Board members, and I want to thank you all for your thoughtful participation and your thoughtful engagement with each other, with the public, with staff, and I do also want to thank staff for their work in creating a plan and revising a plan based on input that we received. I had other things to say, but I thought, Ms. Carter, yours was a nice way to end it. So there's a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No.
2 noes, 5 yeas. The motion passes. We have a new redistricting plan. Thank you. Are there any other comments? Are there any other comments from board members before we close for the evening? There's no superintendent's report. Board comments?
No more here.
I think we're done. Again, I want to thank everybody for their engagement and your time and your attention to this process. It has been challenging, probably the most challenging we'll have to experience as a board. And I hope that we look forward in the next 5 to 10 years that we do this again, that we pay attention to these numbers and we look at them. We don't have to do this all the time, but we do need to pay attention.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I
Mr.
move the
Gibson.
meeting be adjourned.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I like your 2 mics.